And we are live once again in another episode around the fire on Spirit Reflections. My name is Fred Gouveia. Welcome everybody to our episode number 33 with our dear friend, the amazing talented director Wagner de Assis. Hello Wagner, good evening.
Hi, my friend, everybody else. How are you doing? Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me here. And I'm here at your convenience.
Awesome, awesome. We're really glad to have Wagner on the air because I'm a fan of his. Wagner is responsible for bringing to the movies some of the most beautiful stories we have in Spiritism as well as in spiritualism in Brazil. And this has already traveled the world over. And as Chico Xavier, the probably most famous medium in Brazil, one of the most famous mediums in the 20th century in the planet, said that his spirit guide told him that in the future, these spiritual ideas would be disseminated through something called multimedia, which he didn't really understand what that word meant because this was back in the 1960s or
30s,
70s,
30s,
30s.
30s and
Wow.
40s. Yes.
Wow. So and imagine listening to a spirit telling you the word multimedia and it's 1930s. You have no idea what they're talking about, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of his mentors would say the movies that bring educational and inspirational and intellectual and moral stories.
Wow.
That was kind of blowing mind and indeed, I mean, talking about Chico, it is, I think it is a legacy. Brazil still yet to discover, all of, by the way, his works have already achieved the number of 500 books. So when he passed away 2002, he had channeled, right, psychographic, can I say that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, guys,
Channel
sorry for my
psychogram.
English, I'm just warming up. Okay.
Perfect.
And so he channeled from automatic writing uh, more than 400 books. So and he donated all the all the sales, all the incomes from those books, because he was repeatedly saying these books don't belong to me, they belong to spirits who dictated or who wrote them through my arm. And even though both arms, sometimes he was co-writing with both arms, which is amazing, backwards,
Yeah.
to be read against the mirror and so on. But after he passed away, this is 18 years ago, all the crew, all the people who take care of his works and all of his jobs, and they started to dig in, and they found out in drawers or other stuff, other books,
Other
and
books.
compilations, of lost texts and lost channel, lost messages, and so on,
Wow.
which summed up for almost another 100 books. So right now,
Incredible.
Chico has officially 509 books printed,
Books.
books
That
printed
doesn't
by.
count the messages of all the
Oh,
deceased loved
those are
ones.
uncountable, right? Those are like way beyond, because he spent like for 10 years, just working with message from disembodied people, from people from the other side of life, or I used to
Yeah.
say for life after life, right? and
Yeah.
then and then and it's, I mean, Chico is one of a kind. Like every country has one of a kind. Chico is now, and we understood and we learned that he's more than one of a kind for Brazilian standard only. He's one of a kind for international
Right.
and universal themes. When you jump in when you swing all over those books, you're gonna find stories that took place in like ancient Rome,
Yeah.
and how would he describe it with so many details? How would he describe it with so many emphasis on the dramatic sense of people at that time, rather than if it wasn't him writing, it was the spirit who actually lived there. live at that time.
No, we actually had a woman last Saturday who did a biography of Chico Xavier based on the rhythms of anthroposophy, Rudolf Steiner's philosophy, which goes in cycles of 7. And it was a fascinating 1 hour and a half conversation, which will be soon available with English subtitles. Friends, stay tuned. All the Portuguese episodes eventually will make their way with English subtitles. And she reminded me of something had I totally forgotten. Chico had 4 years of a basic education.
Probably. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Nothing more.
Yes.
So basically, he was semi-illiterate, and to be able to pencil so many books that were so tremendous in their depth in all sectors of life is just another proof.
Yes, counting on poems, from different poets, and counting on historical drama, counting of messages with peculiar studies of medicine, which is the work of André Luiz, this spirit who wrote himself a whole series that the most important book of this series is Astral City, Nosso Lar,
Nosso Lar,
which is
the first one,
which came up to be one of my movies, and then it is unbelievable. So I truly believe this is a legacy that Chico has left to the world, and it's yet to be discovered. Totally.
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface. We're going to put our opening vignette, and when we do that, pay attention to you. You're going to see some posters of movies that you've already seen, but some posters of movies that you have yet to see. And then Wagner is going to talk to us about that after our opening vignette. So Wagner, let's start officially our chat tonight. Tell us first, before we go into the movies, tell us a little bit about your personal story, your background, spiritual background, and how you got to where you are today.
Well, I first graduated in journalism. Actually, there was like 28 years ago. So I'm a Brazilian native. I was born in Rio de Janeiro, and after working for a few years as a journalist mostly for some magazines here, and then I went to Global Network TV to work as at the press relation department. And Global at that time, it still is, but Global at that time was the most prolific and most important independent production company in Latin America. So Global is known for its novellas and its series. Now it has acquired a lot of prizes, Emmys, and other prizes as well, recognizing its power in producing stories. So when I started at Global, and I got myself in touch with those storytelling people, with the power of that kind of story, I just noticed that journalism for me was something that was amazing. It was in my veins, but maybe I took myself the chance to make a question. What if I would start to tell other stories, fictional stories and documentary stories as well? And I slowly shifted into the dramatic portion of telling a story, not only as a journalist. So in Global, I spent 9 years there. So I was until 2002. And I learned the craft of telling stories, basically. So I also went to America. I went to New York Film Academy, right up there in New York, in 1997. And I went to LA. I did a lot of screenwriting courses and workshops and learning. It's a craft that you learn by doing.
Right.
You have to do it. It's
just like
it is
conducting
okay
an
with all the
orchestra.
theory. Yeah, it's just like an orchestra, right? So what I did, it was by the time, like before the changing of the millennium, I decided to start telling my own stories. That was 1997. I founded a small production company, it was first Wagner de Assis Productions. That was awful. That is unbelievably awful. So and then we came up with the Cinética Films, which was much more like to the market, and we decided to make movies. And I decided that I wanted to make movies and tell stories in the market. The story would be worldwide, maybe it would be for a broader audience, and so on. And it first began with the storytelling thing. So I wrote during the 90s. I wrote a lot of screenplays for Brazilian TV stars like Xuxa. So the Brazilians were actually listening to us when I recognize the power of Xuxa being
Shusha,
in there.
yes.
Yes. So she was one of the famous Brazilian top stars as well, and it was like a really important learning process for me. And and then I took the chance to do my first direction, which was A Cartomante, the fortune teller. That was 2002, like 4 or 5 years after I was only writing screenplays. And I said, you know what, I can take the chance, I can direct, I know I have the control of the whole storytelling process, which is something remarkable for who is learning. Like making one first movie is a chapter in every
Right.
storyteller story. And this is it. When you do the first one, what do you want to do when you finish it? Do another one. Let's go for the next round. It's being addicted officially to the art movie, to the art of telling
To the
stories, to the
creative
art,
process
to
too,
the
right?
creative process. No matter how tough, no matter how intense, no matter how hard it is. And this is where I am. Like movies and feature films and documentary films after 23 years after with my first official professional works as a movie maker, trying to tell stories. That's all. The story is king, right, Fred? So the
Oh
story is
yeah.
king.
But and it's amazing, Wagner, because you had perhaps a great training ground at Global, because it is renowned, I think, to be the largest producer of soap operas in the world up until recently.
Whether it's not the largest, it's one of the largest.
One
Maybe
of the largest
it matches up with Televisa, or I'm
in
sorry,
Mexico, right?
in Mexico, or other. Uh, I mean, the genre, the genre novella, which is not a soap opera indeed. Novella is a very specific genre. It
Oh,
is a
okay.
6 7 month stories, and it doesn't
Uh,
last so long.
right.
And the episodes are connected all together. So you write what we say chapters, not episodes.
Uh,
And I came back to Global during when it was 2015. I went back to Global as a writer, and I was happy to collaborate in the story of two novellas, which was Além do Tempo, which but it was all
beyond time.
beyond time. And maybe it's a very interesting story. But I mean, it was headed by Elizabeth Shim, which is a novella writer, very famous, a great writer, and that I was also a learner there. And I co-wrote with her as well, Espelho da Vida, which is life mirror, something like that. And it was also it is also a learning process, right, Fred? So no matter what, if I made 5 or 6 feature films as a director, no matter if I had written more than 10 or 12 screenplays, TV series, documentary feature films, whatever, when you start a new project, when you start a new story, you have all the experience before. You have all the pros and the yes and no's, the pros and cons, but it's still the same thrilling, goosebumps in
Yeah.
your butterfly in your stomachs,
In
right?
your
It, it
stomach.
it is the same. It is the same stuff. So that's the pleasure of it.
Nice. It's the execution, and also for so many decades, it was became something of an export product because it got translated to 50, 60 languages, and so many countries for many decades were learning about Brazilian culture through their soap operas. So I'm mentioning this because I have a feeling that your movies are accomplishing something similar, have accomplished and will continue to accomplish something similar for these spiritual ideas that we find in Spiritism and outside Spiritism and other spiritualist philosophies, right? One example, the most famous one is Astral City, a spiritual journey, Nosso Lar, which has been translated as seen by millions of people. And it completely transformed the notion of this genre of the
Yeah,
afterlife genre for films, right?
you're
So
right.
maybe tell us a little bit about that process. How it,
Well, Astral City was my second movie as a director, officially. And it was a property very difficult to acquire with the owner of the property, which is the Brazilian Spiritual Federation. But I was this young guy with 35 years old at that time, and it was like there, oh, can you give me the rights of this major book that is it sold like millions of prints here in Brazil? And what is this kid one, But I kind of managed to convince them, to make them trust and believe in what I was trying to do. And this is one of the tasks that you have to learn, You have to invite people to come and join the travel, join the journey with you.
Right.
So this Brazilian Spiritual Federation, they boarded with me and they gave me the rights, and it took me like 3.5 years to find the right financing, because I wanted to tell a story that would be with no exceptions because of money.
No
So
limit. No, yeah, no
in
restrictions.
other
Yeah.
terms, I didn't want to make cuts because I didn't have the money.
Right.
So I decided I'm just gonna shoot it when the money's there. And yeah, actually the money came. Those were other times, like those were
Right.
I mean, important in other times. But I found partners, investors, and they made me uh, able to possibly tell the story that I wanted to tell, and it means bring this spiritist idea into a broader idea. It's not only cage it on a one name or a one tag, because the nature of spiritism as it was created by the French professor Allan Kardec, it is a nature of worldwide information. It is a of worldwide connection, if I
Right.
say so.
Yeah.
And I was pursuing that goal when I decided to write a screenplay. I said, people in the other side of the world must understand the movie without understanding about the spiritism. And it translated, and it really translated, because we are talking about afterlife,
Wagner, speaking
which
of afterlife, your connection went to the beyond. Are you back? Okay, here you are.
I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. Where you lost me.
It kind of froze. Speaking about the afterlife, and then we froze.
And I mean, we decided to tell a story. I would say that movies usually would tell the story until the light appeared. So it's the light, when the person died, the light appears, and then we are going to cross
Ends
the
there.
light. Let's
Yeah.
cross the barrier. And actually, it came to me as a personal interest that this is a theme that I write. This is a theme that I like, and this is one of the searches of my life. So I'm not going to write about things that I don't care about. It is one of the rules, right?
And you had mentioned to me that some of the big studio heads that you talked about feel that in this pandemic time, these topics, this genre of afterlife, of spirituality, are going to become more and more popular, right? People are going to
I
gravitate.
I think it never really went away, but it like swung with the capitalism forgetting spiritual life,
Right,
social consumers, or the whole actual world, like pushing us out of the main paths of discovering where we came from, who we are,
right,
and
right.
and where are we going to, the major philosophical question. So I decided, no, it's not really a decision, but it's something that only attracts me, making movies about those things, no matter what, because you can find them in dramas, you can find them in melodramas, you can find them in comedies, you can find them in adventure. And also, I used to say, one of the principles that the spiritualists would say is that there are lives on other planets, right? There is a So why Lost in Mars is not a spiritual movie?
Exactly.
It should be, because
Yeah.
if they say so, there is life all over the universe. So the spiritism is a fragrance of God, whatever.
And what I think is very important in the subject matter that you're creating in the movies is that these ideas have been shown in movies in the realm of science fiction, and they've been very entertaining. Sometimes they've been touching, sometimes they've been beautiful. But to get to the point of comforting, truly comforting, you can really, I've only really noticed in very few films, and these films that you're making out of these books that Chico brought are comforting, are healing, are purifying, and that's so much more powerful. It's not just entertainment, right?
That's the challenge. That's the challenge, because that's putting there as a, I used to say that, like impregnating with quantic energy, whatever you say. But I mean, bringing out of the book the essence that is also full of consolation, full of understanding, full of relief, full of questioning as well, full of things that would make you feel better, and when you explore these notions that we are spirits living on a material world, like Madonna would say.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
or the Police, like that's the Police movie,
Yeah.
that's a the Police song, Spirits in the Material World. But it became something that is too powerful, Fred, to let it go. I mean, even if I'm going to tell the story of the guy who codificate, can I say so? Allan Kardec, the French professor who coded, who created
Who
the spiritual,
codified? Yeah,
the
this guy
codified.
right here.
Yes, there you go. That's the poster of the movie that is now in 180 countries through
Yeah,
Netflix. So Netflix worldwide, this, hey, you know what? That story is amazing. That's a true
amazing.
story. That's a guy who was searching for phenomena. That's a guy who is using science to understand what would go beneath and before the table routing, the tappings on the tables, and all the phenomena that was striking the 19th century. I mean, these phenomena, they shook up the whole old continent and also America. And that's a
Yeah,
story to be told, like
it
Kardec's
must,
story to be told, and this
like
one that you're
this
gonna
one.
like this one, right?
I bring this up, Wagner, because I mean, before we get into the Fox sisters, this is such an important rediscovery. We need to revive the narrative that the 19th century not only was the century of so many innovations, but it was the century where modern spiritualism, as we know it, exploded in the northern hemisphere, in
Hundred
Europe,
percent,
in
a hundred,
Russia,
a
in
hundred
North
percent
America.
agree. Yes,
And it influenced entire generations to look at the afterlife as a source of consolation, including presidents, Abraham Lincoln, and others that came after him, who actually did seances in the White House with very powerful mediums whose communications influenced major decisions that they made. And when you talk to scholars and historians and people here in journalism in the United States, they have absolutely no idea. The closest thing they hear is, oh yeah, Lincoln's wife was nuts. She was completely nuts. She was into this medium psychic stuff. That's all you hear.
yeah, and I was shocked to learn that America doesn't know the Fox sisters as it
Yeah,
should. I was shocked to know that America doesn't understand or feel what America was during the Civil War or during the 19th century without the seances that they came up to be called as seances. It's a French word, but because of the sessions where people would communicate with the spirits.
right.
But there would be hundreds of seances every week in all over America, all of the East Coast and also the West Coast.
Right.
And this is something that it disappeared when the century changed, and it disappeared for a lot of reasons, and that's something that remarkable to be understood as well. It disappeared because of people were taking advantage of that and doing
Yeah.
that as a fraud.
Yeah.
It happened in Europe as well.
As well.
It
Yeah.
disappeared because when you have to guarantee all the phenomena upon people, and people are strange, and mediums may be not denied, it cannot deny 100% in mediums. And that's part of the research that Kardec, the professor, made. He was interviewing different mediums in different places, making the same questions, and he created what he would say the universal process method, the universal method of learning. It would say that if the question, if the answer would be the same between different mediums in different places, that would represent that the answer would come from another source, another place, another dimension.
It's what a modern day data analyst use.
Same stuff.
I heard a guy give a lecture saying that he heard from his mentor saying, "In God I trust. Everybody else bring data." So
That's it.
Kardec was collecting data and
That's it.
analyzing the veracity of the data in order to come up with logical hypotheses. That was He was a compiling thing.
That's it. Totally. And then
So I
when I found myself in connection with the Fox sisters story, because it swings a lot about my interests. I said, that story should be told. They were the most famous women in 19th century, the second half of 19th century in America.
yeah,
So they were like in New York, Philadelphia, Boston, and Washington, and
London, right?
then one of them traveled to London. The younger, which is Kate, she was researched by William Crookes. They were producing phenomena after phenomena, but they wouldn't have any rules to behave with that. They wouldn't understand how it went. And they thought in between them, the three of sisters, the older sister was way older than them, which is Leah Fox, and then she was like running the career of the younger sister, and they fought because one of them, Maggie, wanted to have a regular life. She wanted to fall in love and marry a nice guy, and suddenly that she found out that the Catholic family of the guy she was willing to marry wouldn't accept. She was being considered a witch, and then they had a rise and fall, which is amazing and represents a lot all this journey that the spiritualism took during the 19th century. As by telling these kind of stories, I just want to say to American audience, because it's an English spoken movie as well.
Right. It's
I
going to be
want to
shot
say
here in New
it's
York
going
on
to be shot
location, right?
partially. Yes, it's going to be partially shot in upstate in, I don't know if it's New York or if it's Rochester
Pennsylvania, right?
but I mean we have to shoot it there, and we're using American actresses, and I mean it's the story, right? We have to reconnect that time. It starts in 1848, and then we recreated a whole scenario, a whole piece. But to me, it's much more important is to say, listen, this is part of your culture. This
Yeah.
is part of your
Your
basic culture,
roots.
and it's there. It's pulsing there right now. We just need to you just need to go there and listen to your inner voices, or you just go there and open yourself to new realities. Even though if you just believe in quantum physics, doesn't matter. You're going to reach the same level of understanding. If you want to do researches of unconscious research, you're going to find past lives.
Right.
I mean, it's there. And coming back to one of the questions that you raised before, to me, after all these pandemic moments that we're living, we have to reconnect it on another way. We have
Yeah.
to regroup. We have to start all over again. And I think we have a challenge during the next 10 years, I would say. It's a decade to tell ourselves that we can do it better.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble every once in a while.
No, I think history repeats itself, Wagner. And during the time of the Fox sisters, the spirit world was revealing new information on a massive worldwide scale, which in the context of the United States was extremely important because the country was going through a civil war. And
Yeah.
so many parents who lost their children in battle were able to find comfort through mediums who brought messages of their lost sons and daughters who fall in battle.
We
And
have
that
that
healed the country.
we have that sequence in the movie. I mean, lines in front of the Fox sisters house, and they were working day after day. They didn't want to work, and they had to be there, to be used as mediums between the spiritual world, and nobody knew how it happened. Nobody knew a thing about mediumship, and they were there, and it's remarkable. They deserve it, and I'm going to tell
Yeah.
that story. I totally will.
Yes. And it comes at a time when history is kind of repeating itself with so many divisions that this kind of story can bring people together again. See that we all share a common destiny. We are gonna die, and
Yeah.
and there's a spirit world there.
Same goes with Astral City too. I mean, the second book of André Luiz.
Right here.
There you go. It's called The Messengers, and that is the story of those spirits who live in cities. That hover over our atmosphere, spiritual cities. So the idea of a spiritual city all over, of having spiritual cities or spiritual colonies all over the world, in different places and different with different cultures, hosting, and sheltering people who just invited or who die from their places, and they are there, and they learn again and then recover from their illness or their problems, and they spend a few years there, and then they regroup and start to rebirth again. That's a wonderful idea. That's a very inspirational idea. So the story of Astral City 2 is based on another book of Chico Xavier called The Messengers.
The Messengers, yeah.
Which is actually a mission from messengers who live on these upper cities, the spiritual cities. They are now among us. They are working with us. They are living with us. So for the first movie, we told the story that there is this afterlife. There is this shadowy place, like it's not hell itself, right? In other words, it's a kind of different dimension, but it's there for people who didn't, he didn't do well, people who didn't really behave it well, and they will suffer and they will recover their problems or whatever. It's a mental stage,
right?
As we learned,
the transitional mental stage.
And then there's these spiritual cities and colony and so on. And then the second movie is about people who are in these dimensions. They are with us as well. So they are around us. They are surrounding us. They are interconnecting with us through mental, through feelings, and then you open up another major window of, oh my God, what kind of world is this?
I'm curious to know, Wagner, what feedback have you received from audiences in other places that have had, up until the point that they saw the movie, never heard of Chico, never heard of spiritism?
Amazing feedback, like from Eastern Europe, all of the countries there, from China, Hong Kong, or from Australia, from Japan. The movie is in more than 40 countries now, Astral City. And it's not unbelievable because the story is powerful. So you learn that it's amazing to see people saying, "Oh, what is this? I have dreamt with that. I have a dream." Sometimes my grandmother would say things like this to me, or I have these feelings and I never knew how I would describe them.
Awesome.
Or people say we never die. I want to learn more. Who is Chico Xavier? How do I get to know more about these? And it is all kinds of some feedbacks I have to translate because I don't know the language, so I have to Google translate it to understand it. Like,
oh wow,
there was a journalist from Turkey, right? Turkey,
yep.
Turkey. He wanted to learn more about, and I was like sending books and being interviewed for him. It's been 10 years from Astral City first release, and
10 years, wow.
It doesn't last 1 or 2 weeks without something interesting coming out from the
feedback.
book.
The ripple
from
effect,
the movie.
Amazing. The power of that medium of cinemas to tell the story.
The power of the story, the power of a story that connects to people, that talks to the inner lives of people. You do connect when you start saying these things. It's unbelievable.
Our friend John, good to have you here with us, asks if you, Wagner, if you had any dreams about the particular movie that you write, or if during the production process you experience any kind of...
No, I would love to.
Extrasensory intuition. Or...
Yeah, that would be easier to make. But that would be easier to produce or to make it. But no, I just work as hard as I can as a movie maker, and I just, of course, when you figure out about the stories, when you figure out about the scenes or the whole things, of course, I'm taking them out of somewhere in my mind. But I mean, it's not too specific. It's a lot of hard work, and it's respecting the story as well. But it goes on. It goes on. Glad you like. Thanks for asking, John.
Beautiful. So Wagner, tell us how do you plan on shooting these? There are more movies we're going to talk about, but what is the plan now to make these movies become a reality after COVID?
Well, we have to get off the hurricane, that COVID has affected to us. But right now, what I'm thinking is that I have to open I would say, open places in the boat for other partners to board. People who wanted these stories to be in the screens, all over the screens, like not only theatrical screens, but I mean, right now we see
Streaming.
streaming everywhere. But and we have to take advantage of one specific situation, which is the Brazilian currency is very low due to the American to dollar or even euro.
Right.
And right now in Brazil, we have a hard moment with culture, in terms of political and ideological supporting for cultural production. But the movie industry would never stop. It can't stop. So
Right.
I'm deciding to opening ways of finding partners and people who are interested in making those movies realities in America. And soon we'll be announcing ways that people who want to help us to
Right.
produce these movies and these stories will be announcing them for people who wanted to be part of it,
Yeah,
who
it's an
want to.
important. It's important to understand the power of the crowd nowadays because these movies already have a worldwide following with the big international distribution studios like Fox, Universal, Disney, etc. The quality of the product is undeniable, and you have a phenomenon that recently happened when people crowdfunded a grassroots movement which became a tsunami and put in the big screen the series about Jesus called Chosen. They raised more
Unbelievable,
than
right?
$10 million, $10 million from the crowd. And so this is something that we are able to do nowadays, right? With the
Well, that
internet.
it kind of convinced me because
Yeah?
but I mean, you just said the right words. It's the power of the crowd who are in tune, who are in symphony with the same ideas. And this is important, and this is a phenomenon of the new age, of the new era.
Yeah.
And I truly believe it's possible to find partners, and I don't mean only funds or resources. I mean people
Donors,
who
yeah.
donors. I mean people who understand how nice these words, these stories can be, how nice and how powerful these movies can be all over the world, not only for America. Like uh, I'm sure that you have Fox sisters all over the world. We do have. We know
Right.
them. Elena Blavatsky, who is a Russian. We know
Yeah.
Swedenborg,
Swedenborg, yeah.
he's a German, and I mean, I would name a lot of them, but I
Andrew
mean,
Jackson Davis
Angel
here.
Jackson, Daniel Douglas Home. You
Yeah.
would be naming a lot of them, even though in Japan or in China or these stories, they must be told,
Yeah.
and we as storytellers, we have to understand that sometimes it's time to ask for help.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's time to say, people, we are facing hard time to make them now. It's time to open for people who want to roll with me. And I'll keep rowing, right?
And
Keeps.
Wagner, correct me if I'm wrong, but this movie, Nosso Lar 2, The Messenger sequel, The Fox Sister, uh, and others here are pretty much mostly funded. They just need a
Yeah.
little bit left,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. We just got financing them, which is
Right.
something that it really strikes me because there is one. It's an for Brazilian productions. Indeed, we say we want to make the movie we want to make, or we want to make the movie the money can pay for.
Right.
That's an answer, and you say, if the money comes to help, it's just the money coming to help, and then we tell the story. Otherwise you have to cut and you have to adjust, and it's okay if you do that, but I would rather say those stories, they need to be told as they were lived by those. I mean, the Fox Sisters is a story, it's based on a true story,
The book by
and
Barbara Weisberg,
the book
right?
by Barbara Weisberg, and I mean, this is the least that we can do. It's Hollywood. It's Hollywood saying the story is king, right? If the
Right.
story is king, we have to find partners to make the story happen
Yeah.
and tell them.
And there's other stuff in the pipeline, like a series by the spirit mentor Emmanuel, his many lives,
Oh,
right?
that's something. That's unbelievable, Fred. I mean, this guy, I'm close to him, right? So I call him guy. This guy, he told his story through Chico's mediumship when he was a senator in ancient Rome by the time Jesus was in Jerusalem. and he came to Jerusalem because of his daughter's illness, and he happened to meet Jesus, and he denied Jesus. He said, "Who is this guy?" And then we start telling a story that takes place during 2,000 years along.
Right.
So we show 7 lives of this spirit trying to understand what Jesus was saying, trying to understand what is the kingdom of God. Not only the God, the Catholic God, not
Right.
this God that punish people, but God is something that a power within. Some supreme intelligence, which is actually what the spiritists have told the French professor when he asked
Right.
it, what is God? And they said God is the supreme intelligence, which is an amazing answer, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
covers, it shelters, it covers, and it talks to everything else.
Yeah.
So we're going to tell a story that lasts for 2,000 years, and it's a challenge, but it's done. I mean, it's written.
And it's going to be in 2 formats, right? One is a full feature film,
Yeah,
and the
one.
other is a TV series.
Yes, based on those 3 books called 2,000 Years Ago, 50 Years
50 years
Later, and
later,
Hail
and
Christ.
Hail Christ.
It's basic the story of the primitive Christianism, right? Can I say that?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and it's told by someone who actually lived there. So it's rich of details. It's full of things that you understand that it has nothing to do with the Christian movement nowadays in a sense that it has to do with love and care, forgiveness, understand, and trusting, and also about knowing that there is life after life. Because when Jesus comes back from death, that's what he's saying,
Right.
right? There is
Right.
life. Life never ends. It just
Right.
changes dimensions, and that's comforting, but that's encouraging people. And the story, the journey of Emmanuel, is a journey of love as well. He has this wife. It's a romantic story of twin souls, which is
Yeah.
when I read it first when I was like a teenager, and I read it first for the time. Oh my God, he loves this woman for 2,000 years, and
Yeah.
now he can meet her.
It's like
You
they're
know,
soulmates, right?
they're soulmates. So
Yeah.
she's one of the first martyrs of the Christianism. She
Right.
was thrown to the lions because she trusted in what Jesus was saying.
Right.
And I mean, it's
This
an
is a
amazing story. It has to be told. It's there 2,000 years ago. Sorry, it's in Portuguese, but I mean, the series it's probably going to be shot in English. Probably, I'm not done with that
yeah.
yet. But I mean,
Well, whether it's shot in English or not, it'll definitely be available in subtitles in other
it
languages
is.
for sure, right?
It
And
is.
there's one more here, which is our dear Chico
Oh,
Xavier.
that's Chico. That's Chico. Chico forever. Chico para sempre, which is what I say the ultimate movie about Chico. If you want to know who Chico was, you're gonna watch this.
Like the
Like,
definitive film version of Chico's
yeah,
life.
it's hard to call definitive and ultimate, but I mean, we're there to do that because we have so many things about him that people
Right.
spread all over the places. I just saw this Walt Disney's documentary in Netflix, so it's like two pieces of 2 hours, and it's amazing. They just told part of their story. So Chico
Of
is gonna
Chico?
no Walt Disney.
Oh, Walt Disney's life. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then I said, you know what? Now I know Walt Disney. I have read so many things about him in different
Right.
places, but now I
Right.
know his professional life,
Yeah.
or I understand.
I think when you are able to transfer this information from a book to the movie screen in the way that you do and Hollywood does, you legitimize the message to people from all walks of life. You make it truly universal. I've received people's comments to me about this man from atheists, Buddhists, people that didn't care about any religion, who are blown away about what he encountered as far as obstacles. And they only were able to access the information because they were able to see it in a movie format,
Right.
right?
Thank
So
you.
yeah, it's so important to bring these stories, not only of Kardec, Chico, and these amazing figures we are so culturally aware of because of being Brazilians, but I think for me even more exciting is the sort of treasure rediscovery of things like the Fox sisters and all this narrative that the United States was a pioneer of this movement, really, in 1848.
There is a connection.
I mean,
Definitely there is a connection there.
you showed me a book, Wagner, that I'm loving, and I recommend here, friends. It's on Google Books. I downloaded it for free. It was published in 1852 by a man who was a Quaker named Isaac Post, who was a medium. And the book is called Voices from the Spiritual World. And there are messages from George Washington, Benjamin Franklin. The preface of the book by Benjamin Franklin, it is incredibly beautiful.
Well, Mr. Post, he sheltered the Fox sisters for a while when they were scrutinized, when they were researched in the theater in Rochester. They were put in a stage. They took her clothes off to see if they were not pretending, faking those sounds, and it was like a shame.
They were put through a lot of humiliation, right?
Yes, and he sheltered them for a few weeks, I think, and he's in the book as well, because they were doing seances in his house. He was protecting slaves, fugitive slaves that were
fugitives,
he was
escaping to the north, right?
Escaping fugitives. He was sheltering them in his basement. So he's a hero. I mean, he deserves a movie himself.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. So to me, is all about now. I mean, cutting to the end, it is all about financing, because the stories are all there. So
the stories are ready, guys. The scripts are ready. The production is going to resume as soon as COVID is over.
when and if, I'm not saying when and if, when and how.
When.
Yes, it's going to happen. We're going to face it, but it's going to happen,
Right.
And right now we're going to be opening spaces for people to help us in this process of financing as well. In America.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
Stay tuned, guys.
in America, mostly in America, because Brazil has been faced difficult and hard times, and
Right.
I have to understand that, and I have to understand that it's all understanding the scenario. Now
we gotta leverage the power of currency, and the power of currency right now is the U.S. currency. The euro is 5-6 times as valuable as the Brazilian currency, so the money goes 5-6 times more in executing the story. So why not take advantage of it?
And then I have to thank you, Fred, and I had to thank Yara, your mother, and I have to Valeria, and also my friend Marcelo in Florida. I have to thank all those people who understand and who support all these movies. It has been for 10 plus years now, and I'm sure. You're there. And I'm sure we're going to have much more to say, much more to tell.
Yeah, friends.
So
stay tuned. Stay tuned. There's going to be some very cool developments coming up very soon about how you can be a part of this movement, to be a donor, to be a contributor, to help these movies come to light, so that they can comfort, they can inspire, and they can provoke singular important reflections in people's minds, especially at a time when we need so much purifying, so much healing, so much love again. These stories are universal, and Wagner has been showing us how it's done, and we're so grateful that you can continue doing that, my friend. I know you have to go to another commitment, so we're going to say goodbye, and I'm going to invite everyone to subscribe to our channel and subscribe to Wagner's channel, where you can see all the previews of the movies that have already appeared in the past and the ones that are going to be coming up, so that you can get first dibs on it. Nosso Lar, Astral City, Kardec are available for streaming on Amazon Prime, Netflix. And to close, Wagner, I always play a little song. Stick around just for 30 seconds. It's from the 1969 hit from the Age of Aquarius song by the movie Fifth Dimension, which says, "Let the sun shine in." So let the sun shine in.
It's time to have
movies.
The sun. It's time to find the sun again. Thank you, Fred.
Right.
Thank you a lot.
Big hug.
Me too. Too.
Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Oh, this is my Instagram.
Wagner's Instagram, right here. And YouTube.
I see 1111 everywhere, so that's why I put it there.
I see dead people.
Yeah. Thank you, Fred.
Take care, my friend. Big hug. Till next time.